what should you be focusing on to heal from narcissistic abuse? I get this question all the time from my clients as a therapist and a coach, and I see this all the time on social media and in my group program. That's oftentimes what people want to know, because I think sometimes we see that there's so much information about narcissistic abuse now and narcissists, and while that's great, it can also be overwhelming, and then it can also feel even more confusing on where am I supposed to start for healing. And one thing I want you to just start off thinking of and considering is that oftentimes, because narcissistic abuse survivors feel so bad, obviously, because narcissistic abuse is so damaging and so hurtful, you're being gaslighted and criticized and triangulated, and they're using DARVO, that deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender, on you so often that you feel like you're going crazy. You're so worn down, you're anxious, you're depressed, you're apathetic, you're unmotivated, you're confused, you're exhausted, you're all the things. And because you feel so bad, we often think that we need something really big to help us feel better. But what that means is that we often disregard or dismiss all of the small things and the small changes in the habits that actually will help you heal faster. Because we think, I feel so bad, I need something really big that's going to help me heal, that's going to help me get out of this place because nothing else can. But the reality is that healing is in the small steps. Just like narcissistic abuse didn't happen overnight. Narcissistic abuse is like 1,000 small cuts, and every small step you take to heal is like putting a Band-Aid over one of those 1,000 cuts. And over time, you start to feel better. You start to heal. You start to set boundaries. You start to get more clarity instead of confusion, and you feel more sure of yourself, and you have more self-esteem. But you have to take those intentional small steps over time to get there. So let's look at what some of those are. Number one thing that you have to do is normalize what you're going through. I see so many survivors get stuck, and I've worked with thousands of clients at this point on healing from narcissistic abuse. And what happens is that you question yourself over and over and over again. Was it that bad? Was it really abuse? I talk about that in another video, how to know. Absolutely, narcissistic abuse is harmful, and the fact that you can't just explain it in one sentence often shows just how harmful it is. But because we stay here for so long, because we're always questioning how we're feeling, we're not able to actually use the healing strategies. So there's nothing wrong with you. And that also leads to this idea that you can't just believe, oh, well, I should just be over this by now. I should be over this. It shouldn't be bothering me anymore. I shouldn't still want to be with this person. I shouldn't still dream about them. I shouldn't feel the way that I do. I shouldn't have the triggers that I do. We have all of these shoulds that we've placed on ourselves. And a point in our healing that we think that we should be at. And this is actually really keeping you stuck. Because let's think about what you've been through if you've been in a narcissistic relationship. You've been through one of the 5 F's: fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or fold. And so you've been in this fight or flight response. You've been hypervigilant. Your cortisol is all out of whack. You've been so hyped up on just surviving the relationship and trying to make sense of things that your nervous system is completely shot at this point. You have been running in survival mode for so long. This relationship has felt like a war zone. And so, of course, you're feeling overwhelmed. Of course, you're like, I don't know where to start. And so, first, normalizing that you've been in a fight or flight response. And often, what I see a lot of times with survivors is that when you've been in fight or flight for so long, that actually when things get calmer, or you finally end the relationship, or the narcissist leaves the relationship, or whatever happens, let's just say, you're in the relationship and there's a lull, or things aren't quite as intense, or the relationship ends, or there's some kind of breather or break for some reason. Sometimes you find yourself feeling even worse in those moments. And that adds to a lot of confusion and guilt and shame, because then you're thinking, what in the world? Now there's actually a break. Now this person is no longer in my life. Now I'm not even talking to my narcissistic parent at this point, and I feel worse. Like, what is that about? Well, think of the brain as a dam, and it has been holding back all of those unprocessed emotions. When you're in fight or flight, your body and your brain are mobilized to fight the threat. And in this case, this person, the narcissist, has been that harm, that threat to you. And so your brain has been building this dam that's been holding all of this in so that you can survive and you can get through. And then when that person is no longer in your life, or there's like a break of tension in the relationship, the dam breaks. And then all those emotions, all the things that you haven't been dealing with, all the feelings that you haven't been feeling start to rush in. And so I want you to sit with that and recognize and realize that how you're feeling is totally normal, and validate what you're going through. The number two thing that you have to do is be self-compassionate. Now, I know a lot of times people hear this and they go, oh, self-love, yeah, that's a great idea, or I've heard it 1,000 times. Why? And I get that because I often don't want to listen to things until I know the why. So let me tell you the why. It's not just a good idea. It's not just, a fluffy idea to make us feel good. What self-compassion does is actually turns down the volume on your amygdala. Your amygdala is that fear center part of your brain. So it's been very active when you're in fight or flight or when you're in hypervigilance. Obviously, if you've been dealing with a narcissist and you've been experiencing narcissistic abuse, you're in a state of hypervigilance. And what does that look like? It means there's more cortisol that's been produced. It means that cortisol often damages your hippocampus, a part of your brain responsible for lots of things, but particularly memory and learning. And when you're under chronic stress, your hippocampus can't quite function properly. And what does that lead to? It leads to difficulty focusing or regulating your emotions. You feel more tense, you feel more frazzled, you feel foggy, and you don't know why. You have difficulty managing your emotions or managing anxiety symptoms. You often have a hard time retaining new information. So if you ever wondered, like, what is wrong with me? Like, I literally am forgetting, normal everyday things, or it's like I cannot remember things. I have to write everything down, or it's just gone. It's going to leave my mind. Well, long-term stress, long-term cortisol, and being in hypervigilance can certainly lead to that. And it can also mean you have a hard time learning and storing new memories and new information. And so when our fight or flight is activated, that often means our inner critic is really turned up. So we have lots more thoughts like, oh, why can't I just get over this? I should be through with this, or let me just push through. I'm just going to push, and get through this. And so what self-compassion does, and what normalizing what you're going through does, is it turns down the volume on that inner critic. Because the inner critic is really a protective voice. It's like, look out for all the things that could go wrong. And so it's trying to protect you, and it doesn't know what else to do except to tell you all the warning signs. It doesn't really help you figure out what to do with them. It just says, oh, this could go wrong and this could go wrong. And what if this happens? So you find yourself in that constant, like, energetic state of always moving and not being able to slow down and not being able to turn your mind off. That's because your fight or flight is on. That's because your inner critic is going. And so being self-compassionate, saying, you know what, this makes sense. What I'm going through makes sense. I've been in hypervigilance. I've experienced narcissistic abuse. And so giving yourself a moment to say, actually, I'm going through a lot. And so I do need to be a little bit more compassionate with myself, a little bit softer, a little bit more patient. Then that can start to turn down the volume on your inner critic and can actually help you get to this next point. So once you normalize what you're going through, you're being more intentional to be self-compassionate, then you can get to step 3, which is do the small things. These are, remember those Band-Aids, these are the things that are those Band-Aids that are covering up the thousands of cuts that narcissistic abuse leaves. So what are the small things you can be doing that end up adding up a lot over time? You can start writing 5 things each day you're grateful for. And I mean, these are very small things: that you woke up that morning, that you're able to walk, that you had breakfast, that you can go get coffee or from your kitchen, that you have water in your home, that you have a pet to enjoy. Any simple thing, seeing the sunshine, anything that's happening that day. Write 5 things a day that you're grateful for. Go on a 5 or 10-minute walk. This is especially important as you get up in the morning. If you're able to get outside, get some sunlight first thing, go for a 5 or 10-minute walk. That's good for your body. It's good for your gut. It's good for your brain. It's good for those helpful neurotransmitters. It just puts you in a much better state. Also be intentional about looking forward to something. And this, again, can be something really simple. Like, I'm looking forward to having my cup of coffee this morning. I'm looking forward to getting to work and actually getting out of my toxic home life that I'm in right now. I'm looking forward to the end of the week being able to have lunch or have that call with my friend. Whatever it is that gives you something that you can start to look forward to. do things like journal, connecting with friends more intentionally, prioritizing your sleep. This is really important for when you're going through so much fight or flight and your body has been through a lot, obviously. Then prioritizing your sleep, prioritizing your health. Again, it can be small changes like getting in more water. Let me just park a little bit further down when I go to the grocery store and walk a little bit more. So just giving your body a little bit more time to move and take care of your body. That can also look like taking it slow, doing some yoga, anything that puts you in that more restorative state. And what do all these small things do? It gives you a sense of agency and hope. It gives you the sense of, okay, maybe I can make changes in my environment. Maybe I do have a little bit more control, a little bit more choice than I thought I did. And when you have agency, that sense of I can actually control things in my environment, you know what starts to happen is that you start to feel more empowered. And that's so important for narcissistic abuse survivors because you feel like you've lost your power. Like the narcissist has it all. We can get to this place where we don't even feel like we're in control of any things anymore. We feel like we don't have a choice in how we feel or what we think or what we do because the narcissist, it feels like they've taken over everything. And so what these small, quote, small things are doing that end up being not so small is giving you that sense of agency that I can make a difference in my life. I can make choices, and it helps you intentionally focus on the areas of your life and the decisions you have that you can control. And that can snowball over time. And it also gives you hope. Again, hope that things can be different. And I know in a narcissistic relationship, hope is one of those scary things, but we're not putting hope in the narcissist or in them changing. You're putting hope in yourself. You're putting hope that you can feel different and that over time, making these intentional small changes and choices is going to get you to a better place. And so placing that hope in yourself is the best place to put it. If you have any other questions about narcissistic relationships, what it's like to be in them, how to survive them, how to set boundaries. As a licensed psychotherapist, I get these questions all the time and I answer them for clients all the time. And so I would love to hear from you. What are you gaining from this video? What other questions do you have? Please drop them in the comments below. So I'm Chelsea Brooke Cole, and until next time, I look forward to seeing you then.